Hi everybody, welcome to MAAWG-22 in San Francisco. Today I'm with Dr. Marcus Jacobson, who's our keynote speaker, Alex Bobatek, who's co-chair of the Wireless SIG within MAAWG, and myself, Cathal McDade, who is also co-chair of the Wireless SIG in MAAWG. So before we came on today, Marcus, we had a very interesting conversation on mobile devices, and specifically mobile malware and how they differ on mobile devices compared to fixed line devices. So could you give us some of your thoughts on what really are those distinguishing features?
So in the minds of consumers, there are no problems, unfortunately. Unfortunately, this is also something that many technologists believe, that there are no problems. A phone is a phone, it's not a computer, but it's not true. A phone is a computer. Unfortunately, it's a very bad kind of computer. It's a computer without much battery resources. And the very limited battery resources makes you unable to run the most basic antivirus software. So that's the one very big problem when it comes to mobile security. You have less capabilities. Another one is that you have a different mindset among consumers who think of this as a social device and will interact socially and have much shorter time until they will interact, and therefore anything bad will be reacted to much faster. A normal takedown will not suffice.
That's critically, the fact is that I believe that consumers or subscribers actually trust their mobile devices. That, you know, when you talk about a normal takedown, it's easy to do that, and we can see the effects, what happens in fixed line. When it comes to mobile devices, you know, that thing is still in the news and people still haven't actually heard that, actually seen it in action.
Well, even if it's the same, we do it at the same speed, which I actually doubt that we'd be able to do, but if we were to be able to manage the takedown as fast, it still will translate to many more hits, because consumers, any kind of users, will be much faster to access the site, especially if this is something their friends apparently sent them, and that's a social component of it.
I mean, also you made a very interesting point on power, and I believe that that's part of the reason as to why mobile devices are so different. So could you go into more detail? I mean, why would power make such a difference when it comes to, for example, antivirus protection on the device?
So antivirus works by constantly scanning, or at least anytime there's an action on the device, they have to perform some reaction and scan if this is a good thing or not. Now, that is all fine as long as we only have a few hundred instances of malware on handsets, because it's not really going to drain your batteries. But the more things we scan for, the worse it's going to be. And you do really not want to get into a situation where you leave your home in the morning and by the time you arrive at the office, your batteries are dead. And they're dead because you've been constantly scanning for all the concerns that there are, and you run out of power. So power is a crucial aspect of security, and it's very poorly recognized.
I mean, I think what that comes down to is the fact that the mindset, as you put it, is that when they go and look at the fixed line models compared to the mobile models, when you just do a straight port, then you can port, what you can look at is porting code, porting techniques, but if the whole environment, the whole ecosystem is different, then a lot of your assumptions will no longer stand up.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of inertia here. You can implement something and test it, and yes, it works. But it works because there's no threat today. Once the threat becomes tangible, we will be in a different situation. I think of it as mobile rupture. We will have a situation where all our mobile devices are suddenly maybe not so useful, because there is no protection that is meaningful, which will of course make it extremely desirable for the bad guys to attack you.
Another aspect is the network agility of our mobile devices. This device has been on at least 12.5 networks today. These are networks that I don't control, that a trusted carrier doesn't control. As I walk down the street, this may be configured to join foreign networks. this level of exposure also presents some new challenges for us.
And that's exactly the word, there's new challenges here. I mean, a lot of these challenges haven't even been, they've been thought about, but haven't been addressed. I mean, before we came on as well, Marcus, you were talking about some different types of threats as well, such as app spoofing. You know, this is a type of concept we haven't really thought about so much really in the mobile space.
So one problem there is that you have an app, for example a game, that wishes for you to perform a payment, and that's fine, and the app might have been screened and it's okay, but consider a bait and switch where the payment flow is actually replaced so that the consumer believes he's going to his trusted financial institution, but he isn't. He's going to something quite different, and in an app you cannot see. This is a very troublesome situation, and it extends to web apps. On a handset, you could actually scroll up the URL bar so that the consumer, the user, does not see where they are. And then you could put in the content portion of a web page something that looks like an address bar. So now the consumer thinks he or she knows where they are. And that's going to be wrong. So spoofing is another very critical situation because of the limited capabilities of the handsets. In this case, it's not power, but it's screen size.
And I guess we all believe that people actually trust their handsets, you know, and if you see something, it's exactly like you said, an application is different from a web browser. An application is something you've downloaded or you believe you've downloaded, and you execute it, you go into it, and it's just there, it just works. You don't see any visual indications that it's something untoward or dangerous is possibly happening.
And of course people have this false belief too that since Google has a kill switch, they're fine, because anything that is out there can be killed. Now, the kill switch applies to the app. If the app has already misbehaved enough to put things in the operating system, to root the device, it doesn't apply. Also, it of course doesn't apply to all the information that already has been stolen. There's no undo button for this. So there's a false sense of security. Now, I'm not trying to be alarmist here, but I do lose sleep over this.
Today, the mobile device is more trusted. Is that just a perception, or is it really more secure?
Well, I would give the same answer here as if we say Macs are more secure than PCs. So far, they've been more secure because there are fewer of them. The criminals are simply businessmen. They're crooked businessmen. They go for the market size. There's no point to attack a type of device that is rather rare. And up till today, you know, handsets have been rather rare. But now, within a year, there will be more smartphones on Earth than PCs. So guess what? We will have criminals targeting handsets increasingly. And once there's a code base, and once there is competence, we'll see more of it.
So the outlook is for more abuse, abuse of mobile devices. That's something that we're also predicting, based again upon the economics. The criminals who are looking for the best business case, as devices gain market share, and as e-commerce moves to the devices, we expect to see more attacks on the devices. And I wonder what do we as an industry need to do to protect them?
Well, I think we have to state our assumptions to begin with. It's not going to be okay to just port it to mobile. That's the most common reaction. We got to get to the market, we got a product that works on the PC, well then port it to mobile. That's really hurting. That's not going to be a good thing. And it's going to give us a false sense of security, because it is going to work the 6 first months. Because there's no real threat for those 6 first months. There's not enough users. people haven't gotten used to the security measure, and then it's different.
So it's something we've talked about as well. A lot of people in the industry are doing a lot of talking about when it comes to mobile money, for example, e-commerce and so on. And the fact is that as well as a communications device in your pocket and storing all your contacts, now it's going to be essentially a credit card. It's going to have, you know, access to your bank details.
And not only credit card, it's a payment platform already. You could perform payments by calling toll numbers. You could, so even if you don't use online banking or PayPal, you could essentially pay. And so it's desirable for the criminals to be there.
So in your opinion, Marcus, what would you say is what are we going to see the most of, the biggest threat over the next short term, possibly 6 to 12 months? Is it going? There's a lot of news on malware and so on. Is it going to just be an escalation of that, or
it's going to be cross-platform malware in order to hit the largest possible market size? I believe it's going to be more Android than iPhone, but not because the iPhone is more secure. It's just easier to get things out there. And we'll see lots of Trojans. We'll see piracy-based Trojans, and we'll see gaming-based Trojans. We'll see marketplace applications that aren't sound to run and which ask for more abilities than we really should have granted them.
Of particular concern are the side markets, the unofficial markets, which aren't always as well policed as the primary ones. Mm-hmm. There are a large number of applications, often pirated applications, that cost on the primary market that pop up with Trojans inserted in them in some of the side markets. That's an area that users need to be very cautious with.
Indeed, yes. And then, I guess, what can we mentioned this earlier, what do you believe we as an industry can best do to address this? Is it, we've talked about the fact that there's been a lot of approaches on simply taking the fixed line and simply porting them over to the mobile devices. Obviously, you know, we have to go and tweak that. Mm-hmm. But is there a need for a greater shift on that front, or
I think
what's the best
so,
approach?
but also we need to start by being realistic and honest. You know, until we recognize that we actually have a problem, it's going to just creep up on us and it's going to be worse. If we could agree on what the problem is and the severity of it and try to anticipate when is it going to come and hit us, we can make plans. Without those plans, we're just waiting for it.
And those plans, I guess, is be the industry, the community, those affected must all be involved.
Right. And you know, also we need to have an understanding at a government level too. For example, there is a great personalization where people use devices that are not issued by the employer. And it's happening in enterprise, it's happening in the military. It requires attention to be paid to, because it translates to another issue when it comes to malware. You essentially have millions of incompetent sysadmins out there willing to become infected. And also, of course, they're inside the firewall, or they're broadcasting their geolocation or what have you, and that is going to be a problem. So all the people who are interested in maintaining good security must recognize that we don't have it.
And there was another very interesting conversation we were having on passwords on mobile devices, which was a concept that most people wouldn't even consider need to be changed or modified. So talk us through that.
So at the high level, people hate passwords in general, but more so on a handset, because you know it's 2 to 3 times slower to enter a password when you have to press the shift to uppercase, then you have to press the shift to numericals, and then you fat finger the keyboard and you have to erase, and then finally you make it, and then you realize that you must have made some mistake. And so the natural reaction, of course, for people is to either go away, they won't use that service, which is a horrible thought to the service providers, who then in turn will soften up security in order to make that not happen. Or users will put poor passwords, which is bad for security, or they will use password managers, which is not a good idea either. Similarly, we need a paradigm shift there in order to authenticate the human users behind the devices in a way that is actually not such a torture for them, and which makes them willing to select secure authentication methods. And there are many ways of doing that. You could do it using cleverly chosen pins, you could do it using sequences of words, which actually has a surprising amount of security at the same time as it's being user-friendly, because autocorrection is enabled. Or you could use it by using gestures, for example. You wave your device in your particular manner. These are ways in which you could authenticate users. And we have just not explored that enough.
That's something that most people haven't explored, I believe. Okay, thanks everybody for attending. So it's goodbye from MAAWG-22, San Francisco.